Looks like we're
We're
live.
live.
We are live. It must be live because it says it's live.
Yes.
Yes. We are
Clock is
live.
ticking.
Booze Dancing is live tonight. A live stream. We haven't done one of these in a while.
No, we haven't. This is a What We Watch When We Drink podcast live session with a very special guest.
We have a very special guest. And this live session will be turning into a podcast at a later date. Correct?
Correct.
Correct. Now,
Correct.
our special guest, who you see up in the corner of your screen, probably in the corner of my screen, is our friend who was here. We just talked about this about a year ago. Lisa Zambetti is here. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, you guys.
Lisa,
Hello.
welcome.
Thank you. Happy summer. Cheers.
Happy summer. Cheers. We know Lisa because we are all in the podcast game, and Lisa has a podcast herself called Killer Casting, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
actually
right.
just listened to the newest episode this
You
morning.
have two,
Oh.
correct?
I do.
Two.
I have two podcasts. One is Killer Casting, as you said, because I'm a casting director and I've happened to cast a ton of psychopaths. So I have a podcast called Killer Casting where we talk about, weird and wonderful shows that I'm watching, shows that I'm casting, issues in our industry. We have a big issue coming up at about midnight tonight. The SAG-AFTRA union membership I'm anticipating is going to go on strike, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, so I have a Killer Casting podcast, and I also have a true crime podcast called Real Crime Profile. That is a whole other part of my life. But so yes, I do a lot of podcasts.
Wow.
Excellent. So really, the casting of psychopaths, this is our audition reel.
Perfect.
Exactly.
We could be on this easily. We're definitely a subject matter, aren't we?
All right. Well, let's hold on. Shall we run a quick intro?
Sure.
All right. Let's do that real quick. And action. Welcome to What We Watch When We Drink, a Booze Dancing Entertainment Network podcast featuring lively discussions about movies, TV shows, and anything else that we're watching while we drink our favorite boozy beverages. If you enjoy this show, please subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Audible, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can also find us on boozedancing.com, and if you have any questions, comments, show or drink suggestions, email us at boozedancing@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
And we are back live. And Ange, where can people be watching this if they're not watching? If they can tell somebody where to watch this, where should they tell them to go?
We got YouTube. We're on our
YouTube.
Facebook page.
Facebook,
It's Booze Dancing on the Facebook page. LinkedIn, I think,
LinkedIn,
and Twitter.
so you can put your resume up and
Exactly.
and watch this live stream all the same
See?
time.
So this is an audition. This is a job interview. It's everything all at once.
Everything all at once. I
It's
love it.
We're
It's
the
everything
jack of all
everywhere all at once.
Speaking of which, yes, we have a little person from that movie that pops up in The Bear too. That was a nice surprise.
Who?
Did they? Who?
Oh, we'll come to it.
We'll come to that. Okay.
Okay, we'll get to that. We'll get to
Okay.
that. So this is what we watch when we drink. So the key word and all that is drink. Are we drinking tonight, kids?
Yes.
What are we drinking?
I have some red wine. I believe it is a nice little, very cheap Pinot Noir that I'm
Fine
enjoying.
with us.
California?
We're cheap little bottles of wines ourselves.
Sure.
Okay. Aaron, what do you got?
I actually made a little cocktail. I made a G&T, gin and tonic with the Levantine gin from Israel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, our friends from Impex
Oh, that's
and
good.
JVS.
That's very
right?
good.
Yep. Because it's very hot here. By the way, Lisa, where are you right now?
I'm in LA.
You're in LA. I'm in LA. It's smoking hot here.
Finally, yes, it's
Yes,
kind of hot.
it's smoking. And where are you? And
Me?
how hot is it? And what are you drinking?
It's about, I think it hit 94 today,
Hey now.
but I was in an air-conditioned office, so it didn't really matter. I went from an air-conditioned house to a car to the office. I was outside for maybe all of 5 minutes.
It's been 72 for you all day.
Pretty much, yeah. 72. So I've got a Johnny Walker 18. It is
Ooh.
a bit of a drag. So
Clink, clink. Cheers,
so we
all.
got- All right, cheers, folks.
Cheers.
Here we go.
Okay.
All right. So, Lisa, before we get too far along, you were here a year ago, and you found her podcast, right?
Yes.
And talk about killer casting for a bit, because I think that's just a fascinating, kind of related to what we do here. Talking about what people are watching and the people that are in the shows that we watch, right?
Yeah, well, because I spent many, many years casting a long running procedural called Criminal Minds. It's a very dark show, and it just suited me. So that made me watch other really dark shows and want to talk about them. For me, when I watch a show that I'm really passionate about, I want to jump on the phone, I want to or go to coffee and like talk about it. And so when you have a podcast, and I know so many people who are in the industry who also want to talk about it, and it's just great to break it down. And I love when I'm really into a show, I'll go and search podcasts so I can kind of relive the episode or whatever. And so I kind of want to do that too. And especially because I have kind of a unique perspective. I love talking about the casting and the actors and how a lot of the actors I know and have auditioned for me before. And it's cool to watch them in, different roles. And I like to break down the writing and the directing and the production value. I love talking about wallpaper. I'm a real nerd about looking in the background of a scene, looking what the wallpaper is, what the color of the walls are. We're going to talk about the bear. In the bear, there's a lot of blue. There's a lot of blue tones in the bear, and I just love calling that out and talking about it. So yeah.
When you're looking for people to play parts, how much guidance are you getting from production? Are they getting very specific about, we want someone this tall, we want someone ethnic, non-ethnic,
Yeah.
accent, this one right-handed, left-handed? How?
Yeah, well, it all starts with the writer. It starts with the script, what's on the page, and then you have a lot of meetings with the writer, with the director, with the producers to talk about, okay, who do we really want for this role? Can we open it up to different ethnicities or different, body types, to different whatever? And then you start the work. You start the work of auditioning people or collecting tapes and stuff, and you just sort of it's kind of like in human resources when you have a job description out there and you get all these resumes, you got to hone down, hone down, hone down until you have your candidates. And that's kind of the same thing in a more creative way in casting. And you might have 5 people show up for a producer callback who look nothing alike, who are completely different, but who at their essence, at their core, are the character. And it's just sort of up to the producers to go, okay, that guy, or that lady or whatever. So it's a whole process to get to that answer.
Is the casting business different now than it was when you first started? And if
Well,
so,
yeah, well, it's different since the pandemic, because before the pandemic, I had an office and actors would come to my office and wait in the lobby and
an
get
office.
really nervous and then come into my little taping room, and they would audition for me live. And then if they made the cut, then they would go and audition for a callback with all the other executives and higher up people. But now we don't do that anymore because of the pandemic. We couldn't be live in person. So everything went to a self tape. So an actor now will just be by themselves in their house, in their apartment, and tape themselves
Wow.
and send me the tape. And then I look through all the tapes, and then we'll either decide who to cast just from those tapes, or we'll do a live Zoom audition like this with, the directors and the actor and me all on like this, and do, read the scenes and stuff like that. So it is completely different in that we don't, very rarely have in the last few years have I had to be in person.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really changed.
So I guess one good thing that comes out of that is the geography now is doesn't matter, right? You could be talking to someone in Germany,
Yeah.
or somebody gets from wherever in the world could send you a tape.
That's right. Well, depending on what the project is, that's true. However, you still have to, like, if it's shooting in LA, you have to live here, right? You have to be technically by the rules of the union, you have to be an LA local hire, or all these other things kick you out. The producers have to pay for your hotel and pay for your travel, and they usually don't want to do that. They want but yeah, theoretically you could be anywhere. And a lot of people, like right now, are on vacation. So I've been casting something, and people are, in their hotel rooms sometimes when we do our Zoom audition. And so in a way that's really great, because it unbinds you from being stuck in either LA or New York or, a major hub. You can live really anywhere as long as you can tape.
Wow. funny how the world has changed in so many ways for so many different industries, just because of these
Absolutely.
computers.
And necessity. I mean, we had to. You couldn't. There was no way for us to be in person.
Yeah.
There was all kinds of constraints because of the pandemic. So, and then it just never went back.
So why don't we transition to this little TV show that Ange and I are kind of obsessed with, and we're not the only ones, I guess. Little background for our audience is that when Ange reached out to Lisa to talk about the show and to come on the show and talk about the bear, she was a little apprehensive.
A
I'd say
little. I think it
a
was
little.
no, no,
I guess it was no.
no.
Um, I think, well, you loved the first season, but weren't crazy about the first couple episodes. And I don't know. You guys talked before I did before we went on, but is your feeling different now, or what was your apprehension? I guess maybe from the first couple episodes.
Well, we covered the season 1 of The Bear on my podcast with a casting director who is in Chicago, who's a dear friend of mine, we've all worked in the restaurant industry.
And
And
I
it
love
was
that episode. It was
oh,
so in the weeds about
Yep.
restaurant stuff.
exactly, in the weeds, exactly. So I loved it, and I was really glad it got a season 2. But it's hard. Your sophomore year is tricky.
Yep.
There's a lot. You set a high expectation, and so when I started watching it, and the first 2 episodes in, I was just like, nah. I'm played out. Like it just felt very repetitive to me. Like the relationships the arguments were all the same. The tensions were all the same. I just felt like we were just kind of going over and over kind of the same dynamics. And it was feeling a little bit tired and tedious to me. And I thought, I'm not that interested in this. I'm not, I can sort of see what this is going, and I kind of tapped out of it. So then when you asked me to watch it, I was like, I don't think so. But you and everybody else has said, around episode 3, it really starts to make a shift. And I was wondering what that was going to be like plot wise. Is somebody going to die? Is something, what's going to happen? So, but anyway, I resumed watching it, and, I definitely started to hugely appreciate a lot of the ways they were telling the story and a lot of the character development and things that were happening. I still had moments where I was just kind of gritting my teeth like, oh, I wish they could just get rid of this part of it. And we can, talk granularly because I've got like 18 pages of notes. But, I think anyway. So why do you guys love it so much?
Aaron.
Ange.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's the dynamics. I think it's the characters. I don't really care so much about the plot.
Yeah.
But just some of the characters really were just so, and I think they were more developed this season in some respects. Carmi kind of got a little bit annoying to me. Sydney, who I found annoying the first season, I was a little more sympathetic to her in the second season because of what she's dealing with, aka Carmi. I like where they went with Marcus, and I like that everybody kind of got their little piece, like they kind of separated. What I was thinking about? You've seen Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Star Wars, they're all together. Empire Strikes Back, they all kind of go their separate ways to a degree, and they're all kind of just trying to find themselves, figure out what's going on, and then they come back together for the grand finale. So it was kind of like that, like Marcus gets sent off to Denmark, and Sydney's trying to figure out, is Carmi a good business partner? Is he not a good business partner? What do we want this restaurant to be? All that kind of stuff. I like Tina's whole storyline going to chef school and how she was so excited and so pumped. Like, she's just grinding it out in the beef for all those years. And now she's realizing, I'm actually a really good cook. I'm not just, working in some greasy joint somewhere. I can actually do this. So, and that's what really kind of sucked me in.
Yeah. Go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to ask you a question, Ange. The family dynamic that's overwhelming in this show.
Yeah.
Did you feel any of that? Maybe we all do, but maybe you feel it in a different way from an Italian-American background? Oh, sorry. Do you need to call a counselor at the moment?
Please. The drama. But I don't know. Everyone says it's Italian-Americans, this, that, the other thing. But I mean, is a Jewish family any different? Is an Irish family any different? It's family. It's like, it's like, you've got 3 kids, Aaron. I've got 2. You've got what, 2 boys,
Mm-hmm.
Lisa?
Yeah.
So you know how they are. They're always a pain in the ass with their parents, but with everybody else, they're great. But the parents can just kind of, parents, family, nobody gets on your nerves like family.
Right, right. So I think that you said something really important, Angelo, is that when the characters are going off on their separate journeys, that's when I was really getting more engaged.
Yeah, same
Carmi
here.
starts, at the moment that Carmi, meets his old, crush Claire, that was fucking hot. I don't know if you say the fuck word on this show, but anyway,
Sure, why not?
I mean that chemistry is like a casting director's dream
Is
when
it the
they're
blue
just
eyes? Is it the blue eyes that are just like magnified in there? In there, God, that's so
Well,
crazy.
it's just the chemistry. Like they're just in this little bodega, and I think that's where they run
Oh,
into each
right,
other,
yeah.
the grocery store, and they're just like leaning against the glass, kind of each of their heads against the glass. And there was just something so lovely about that interchange. I mean, that chemistry is money. And I have no idea if Molly Gordon, who plays Claire, if she auditioned for that role and they did chemistry reads, or if it was just an offer. She's a pretty well-known actress. She did a really wonderful arc on Animal Kingdom. And so, I've known her since she was really, really young. I'm not sure how that all came together. I'm sure Jeremy Allen White was very protective about who was going to play opposite him. And maybe they already knew each other. I'm not sure. But that chemistry was so palpable. And she's just matured as an actress in such a wonderful way that's when I was like, okay, I'm into this. I'm into this.
Well,
And,
here's a question for you. So she was on Rami, right, Aaron?
Yeah,
She was the love interest, sort of, in
I
like the
think
first
she
season
was
of
like
Rami or the
she
second.
dated him twice, I think.
Right.
Or two
Christopher
episodes.
Storer directed some episodes of Rami.
Right.
So I
right.
guess there's there's that interconnection. They're all with FX. They're in the FX universe. So I
Yeah,
guess
yeah, for
that
sure.
probably helps get your foot in the door.
And
I would
Absolutely.
think. I
And
don't know.
Rami himself directed one of the
And he
episodes
directed.
too.
Yeah. So that's true. That's probably those connections there. But so that love story developing was great. And what also hooked me was when Sid, the young, chef de cuisine, she starts going around Chicago tasting food. And
Mhm.
and so that was I really love that montage, that collage of seeing Chicago and seeing real restaurateurs. I mean, I don't think a lot of those people were actors that she was interacting with. And I think that, and there's one scene where she's talking to this chef and he's like hand cutting a side of beef.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you know anything about that. That is like one of the most dangerous, hardest jobs is disarticulating a side of beef. You have to
Mhm.
have real skill to do that. And I really
And
started
strength. A side of
and
beef.
strength,
That's
yes.
a couple 100 pounds. I mean, that's not
Yeah.
like it's
And
not
those
like
knives are like not you're not just gonna have a little nick on your hand if you miss,
no,
you
no.
know, one of the rib bones. But that's where it kind of started to me. It's like this love letter to Chicago. It's a love letter to the craft. Malcolm Gladwell talks about the 3,000 hours. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
10,000 hours.
10,000 hours, right.
Yeah.
10,000 hours to become
Yeah.
an expert at anything.
Right.
And that's where the show really starts to just blow kisses at that, like how hard it is to become good at just one thing, just making the perfect ravioli, just making. And so that's where I started to get really ignited. And then when the show, as you mentioned, Angelo, when I forget the character's name, but he goes to Copenhagen.
Oh, well, Marcus?
When Marcus goes to Copenhagen, which is so wonderful because I think, for a big teddy bear African American man to go to a country that has probably like a negative Black population, and for him to be a very I'm getting a feedback. I don't know if you're hearing feedback on
Yeah, I hear it.
on my
Yeah, I hear some crackling.
I
Is that you, Aaron?
I do not hear it. Let me unplug
I
my
think it's Aaron. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Lisa.
Anyway, to see that wonderful big lug of a guy going to Copenhagen and getting his bearings and being that fish out of water. I mean, I love that. Seeing
Yeah,
him
it
in
was
his
great.
big, huge frame in this tiny little houseboat and then they have this great cameo by Will Poulter, this British actor, and just that quiet perseverance of perfection that you have in the backs of kitchens. I mean, that's when I was like, all right, I'm into this. So yeah, that was really lovely.
And the photography, Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, they just stepped it up like so many levels with everything. It's like, I don't know, maybe they got more drones this time around, or I don't know how they do it.
Well,
But
not only that, I mean, which that you're right. I mean, that kind of cinematography is not cheap, and
no,
going to Copenhagen to really shoot that. And then just the cast budget. I mean, you have this Christmas Eve episode. The cast budget for all of those cameos kind of was staggering me, because that's something that I do in my job. I have to budget for all of that stuff
right,
and
right,
go back
right.
to the studio and say, "Hey, we can get, Bob Odenkirk, but he's going to be $75,000 for the day." I mean, just even if they all work for scale, all of those people, John Mulaney, Sarah Paulson, like we said, Jamie Lee, who just won the Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean,
Oh, okay.
even
That's what I
even if
forgot she
they're
was in that.
just
Yeah,
even if they're just working for scale, let's just say scale, which is going to be $10,000, and they
right.
probably had to shoot that in one day, I would imagine, to have everybody's schedules aligned.
Yeah.
That's a lot of clams.
Uh-huh.
I love the well. First, I'll jump ahead a little bit. So this is in the comedy category for the Emmys,
Yeah.
which is an interesting way of
Now, there's a
describing
lot
comedy.
of funny stuff.
There is. So, but my first thought is it's not a comedy,
No,
and
no.
it's a more of a dramedy, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
And I love the constant tension and uncomfortableness of a lot of it versus the really funny stuff. There
Mhm.
is this constant tension going on between you want to laugh a lot because Fack is doing something crazy, or one of those eye rolls from Sydney. It's hilarious. But then you've got this total opposite, which is like real life, of this ugliness, this coldness, this sadness, um, that is fighting against the humor, or the humor is fighting against the darkness. I love it, and it's you see a lot of the dark comedies, and they're more dark than comedy. This is really a funny, very funny, like you said, Ange, drama, and it doesn't leave you always. We know there's the big Christmas episode, and last year the episode in the one take episode inside the
Oh,
kitchen.
Mhm.
Um, there you are ratcheting up your
Yeah.
shoulders. You
Yes,
are uncomfortable the whole time, and you can't
absolutely.
wait for it's like a really bad roller coaster ride. You can't wait to get off, but you can't
Mhm.
wait for it to stop. You can't you want it to go longer. I love all of that about it, and I think the stories itself are really great, and the characters are really great. But that underlying essence of it is just fantastic. I can't put into words enough how great that is. That
Yeah,
part of it.
I agree that, you only have to sort of define yourself as, are you a comedy or are you a drama, in terms of the Emmy Awards. I mean, it
Yeah,
kind of this kind of just sort of
doesn't matter.
defies category, but you're right. They're really great at ratcheting up the stakes on so many levels, the financial level, as you mentioned, the family dynamic level. Like, there are so many pieces of tension, of failure and history, and, so many things. But I would say that this is going to sound really strange, but my least favorite episode was the Christmas episode, because there was something about it, even though it was just like so glorious to see all those cameos, Jamie Lee Curtis as the mom, and, John Mulaney, like just walking in and being this really nerdy, whatever. But when I was thinking about it, it felt to me like a lot of that episode was improvised, and I could really tell that it was just, I was longing for some kind of structure and something. And you could see it in that very tender scene between Richie, played by Eben Moss Backrack, and his pregnant wife, played by Jillian Jacobs. They have this kind of quiet scene where she's feeling
right.
really nervous, and they're kind of having this connection. And that was lovely. And so there's such pros. I mean, they just communicate, years and years of a relationship in like a 5-minute scene. But all of the other scenes, there's so much crosstalk and so much in the kitchen and this and that. And I started thinking, like, if these weren't all cast with all these stars, would I really care about this scene of the mom kind of just being over the top and crazy, and all of these cast of characters coming in and out, like it just started to lose itself with me because it was just like so repetitive, and it just felt like it just needed structure until the very end, of course, when the car crashes through the door or whatever. But I don't know. I love all those actors. I love Bob Odenkirk. I thought he was, fantastic in it, but it was so repetitive to me.
So I heard Christopher Storer, is that his last name?
Yeah.
Showrunner, talk about that episode. And, we knew, I remember reading a year ago or so that Odenkirk was going to be on. And, you think Odenkirk's going to be on, he's going to be, is it a recurring character? He's probably going to be some, business guy or some, maybe I doubt he's going to be a chef. Maybe he's going to be a family member. But you don't know about these other people that are going to be on. So as Storer says, this was meant to, like in his own life, when you go to that holiday event, family event, and you see all these people you haven't seen in a year or longer. And then there's people all out of context. Why is that person here? Who is that person?
Right.
And you're thrown into this party or social event, and it's kind of chaotic. And, and if it's a family one, it's Thanksgiving, for instance, all of a sudden you haven't seen, it's happened in my house. And you people haven't seen each other, and it's weird, it's uncomfortable. How do you start the conversations? And some people are just like the facts, just talk baseball cards out of the blue. There's no like, hello, how are you? It's just weird. And he wanted to portray that.
Yeah.
And by having those big names and faces, it was even more, I think his goal was more abrupt and more shocking as you, as a guest coming into this house, the Brizzato house, and going, whoa, what are all these people here for?
Yeah.
And I think on that level, it really works. And the tension level is just off the chart.
Yeah, I had a little PTSD at that one, but it was good. It was fun.
I've watched it twice. No, I've watched it 3 times actually.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and I completely understand that. But there was never a moment when I wasn't going, "Oh, Jamie Lee looks really good. Is that really her blonde hair? Look at those nails they put on her." It's like I had this inner monologue that was just never not. Was never not forgetting who all these people were, and I wasn't able to disappear.
Interesting.
I couldn't disappear into the family of it all.
I sort of get that. Remember Mayor of Easttown?
Yeah, I covered that too in my show. Yeah,
it took me a couple episodes to get past that. It was Kate Winslet.
Sure.
Me too. Yeah,
it was just distracting. I'm like, that's Kate Winslet, and she's outside of Philadelphia right now, playing a Delaware County girl.
Right.
So it was just kind of funny.
But the unstructuredness of, there's a reason why writers are writers. And improv is great, but when it's so all over the place and you just see people saying the same beat over and over again, it's not really getting anywhere. How many times can, Abby Elliott's character say, Mom, are you okay? Are you okay? Yeah. It's just like, okay, you get it. You're worried about her and she's drinking. How many times can we have the shot of you pouring out I don't know. It just felt really repetitive. But that said, you do have to have, it was an important episode to have. It sets up so much, so much.
Down the road. And the finale it sets up too. With Jamie Lee and, showing up and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
but I think
go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but I much preferred, like we kept saying, like each of them goes on a journey. And when Richie goes, that's just a great episode of him going to intern, at this Shishi Mishi arty farty restaurant. He hates to get up at 5:30 in the morning. And then by the end, he's like up early, and he really becomes, he falls in love with the passion that all of these people have and the precision and the craft. And that was a great, we would call it as a character redemption arc, right? Where he starts in one place and you kind of know, okay, he's going to turn into like the best, whatever expediter, under their tutelage. But that was very satisfying and wonderful, and such great actors.
We've talked about this on the podcast.
By the way, Richie wears suits now.
Yeah,
he does wear suits. He looks good. He looks very good.
He was great. That episode might be my favorite of the season. Mm-hmm. But anyway, go ahead.
We talk about I'm not a huge fan of flashbacks. I'm not a
Mhm.
huge fan
Yeah.
of especially ensemble casts where you have to every character has to have. I think it goes back to Lost. Lost was like the king and queen of that, where the every of the 40 characters had to have like their dedicated episode of going back to find out where they came from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been overdone, I think, in Hollywood. And this is interesting because there's not a lot of that except this one episode. There's a little bit in the first season with
Right.
Carmi back
With Michael, with his brother.
with his brother, but also in the restaurant he worked at with
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Remember
With
Joel McHale.
Joel McHale. Right.
Right.
Joe McHale, yes. But really, there's not a lot. That's about it. And this one episode, the Christmas episode, the fishes, is sort of this all at once. You get it all at once. You're getting all the backstory, a lot of it, not all of it.
Mhm.
99% of the backstory of what this family dynamic is all about. And there's no more. That's it. And I kind of like that. We're not regurgitating every episode some part of Richie's, 12-year-old self or
Right.
Car, you know,
Yeah.
time in Copenhagen. I enjoy that. It's let's be linear and let's go forward and find out where these people are going. And yes, you find out about where they were, but we're not going to go nuts about it, I think, except in one episode.
What was neat too, and I think you mentioned it, they use photographs a lot to just have, to kind of tell you who's who and all that good stuff.
Yeah, my daughter and I rewatched the season over the last few days, and the very first episode, there's a bunch of pictures on a table, and like one of the first early scenes in episode 1, and Carmi's looking at him, and so is Richie, and there's a picture of Jamie Lee Curtis, and you would have not noticed it.
Right.
Some of the pictures are askew. They're not like looking right at you. They're upside down or whatever. Oh, shoot, I should have clued in on that long ago. But yeah, that's another way of going backwards without going for a whole separate storyline. I agree.
No, but they have like a brilliant device is that they have this countdown to when the restaurant is going to have to open. And that's just a great device as you count down the weeks. And the other great thing is then you also have a pregnancy. So that anytime there's a pregnancy, you're also counting
you're on
down.
The clock.
Every second counts, right? That's like time is an underlying theme here as well. And I think what's really good about the number of weeks till the opening, if you were a really jaded TV watcher, you'd say, this all can't if you didn't have that, this can't happen. How can they build a place in 3 months? How can all these things, how can you train a staff like so quickly? How can you hire all these people so fast? But with the element of time and this clock, I think you can divorce yourself from that compression that half-hour TV does to you, that you're trying to compress 3 months, 4 months into 10 episodes. But if you have a clock telling you, okay, this is really 12 weeks, this is another 3 weeks, it makes it easier on to swallow all that. You have to, there's in TV, you have to swallow whatever is thrown at you because it's TV. You can't show everything.
Right.
And that helps, I think, the viewer to understand a sense of time and not get sucked into that can't happen. It's impossible, right?
Yeah, but I didn't find it that I opened a restaurant in New York City many years ago. And you have to get that fucking thing open,
because every day you're not open, you're not making money.
That's right. Yeah. And you still have the rent to pay and you still have all these labor costs and you have all these, so I found that really, really felt, look, anybody who's listening to us who's an actor, you're also in the restaurant business. I mean, that's just goes, par for the course. So a lot of actors, I think, love this show because they've been there and remember what it's like. I mean, and the thing that they get so right is in in those minutes, there's like this golden hour before you open or before the shift starts. And it's like the energy kind of coalesces and everybody's adrenaline starts to rise. It's a palpable thing. And then you're off and then you're into the shift. And it's just, I felt that they really captured it. It's like, it's a hard thing to capture well, but they really did, because I've had those nights where the expediter was just losing their fucking shit and people were out in the back getting high, and then somebody cut themselves and then something happened and you run out of the beef, you got to 86 this and this lady's drunk at the bar, how do we get her out? It's the mayor's wife, what are we going to do? There are so many things, and then these two over here, they're like fucking in the kitchen, like people are going into the broom closet and like snorting cocaine. There's a tremendous amount of drugs going on, in a restaurant, and food, and it's just I don't know. I found it really brought me back. I mean, even to the point when I worked at the 21 Club in New York City, and I had to measure how far the silverware was from the edge of the table. And I was trained that when a guest gets up to go to the restroom, you push in their chair, you fold their napkin a certain way. And I was in a private room once, as the waiter, but I was really just there to stand there in this private room with Rush Limbaugh, and the governor of California at the time was Pete Wilson, and Ariana Huffington, and all this very intimate dinner where they were talking about all kinds of things that I could have tweeted out if we had Twitter at the time. But I was just like standing there at attention. I was like part of the fucking furniture in case they needed a drink, or in case they dropped their fork, or in case they needed their mouth wiped or something like that. So it is interesting, the different lo-fi and hi-fi levels of the restaurant industry, and they capture that.
I heard Dave Chang's podcast a few days ago talking about the show, and he was exactly what you're saying. There was, some technical stuff that he wasn't, that's not totally legit, but the essence of what the kitchen is and what a restaurant is well done. And I've heard it from a few different people that are in the restaurant business. That is what we're talking about. It's not perfect, but it's TV. It's a TV version, but it is so. It's really fun for an outsider. I've never worked in a restaurant. Is getting the backside story, getting into the weeds, and really kind of, you figure any industry out. Like, I don't know, pick an industry, engineering or whatever. If you're an outsider and you hear all this stuff, it's all jargon. You don't know what they're talking about, but it's fascinating. It's such
that's my favorite thing.
It's like Star Trek when they have to go on, when Leonard Nimoy has to go on some long thing about some aliens on another planet. You totally have to get absorbed. You do get absorbed in the language and in the dialogue and the jargon, even though you don't have no idea what they're talking about. And but it makes you think.
But I love that.
I do too.
I love seeing people in their element doing this thing that they do the best in the world and that I could never do. And I also love just watching real-time cooking, also because I'm a huge fan of Top Chef and all those cooking shows. But and in the classic movie Big Night, the very last scene is Stanley Tucci just making omelet, almost like with one hand. He just makes this omelet like he's done it a million times in one pan, and they all share it and eat it. I mean, it's a silent scene, but it's just so compelling to watch somebody actually cooking. Any show that has that, or any movie that has that, I'm a real sucker for that.
The food aspect of it is like the food's a character, of course, right? And that aspect of the show is interesting because Christopher Store's sister, who is the food consultant on the show, she's a restaurateur. She's a chef. And she works with Maddie Matheson, who he's a total chef. He's had many restaurants, and now he's becoming an actor. And they are the food people.
I think he's still becoming. I think he has a ways to go.
Yeah, he does. But, he's don't sell him short, man. I think he's maybe never going to be like winning an Oscar, but I think he's got some interesting abilities. He's never going to be great, I don't think, but he's got some interesting abilities for the kinds of roles he can get, I think.
Well, in my professional opinion, one of my favorite actors was Philip Seymour Hoffman, who is just a genius and was lost way too soon. But one of his first, things he did that people knew him for was a god awful performance in the movie Twister, where he played this big personality. Hey, dude, we're gonna go find some, whatever, and it was a painful performance because it was so pushed. And I think he even has said that was his least favorite performance. He was out of his depth and he was pushing way too hard. And I think, just because you're on screen and you're being loud doesn't mean that you're funny or you're acting. And so even in the first season, he really stood out to me as being kind of the weak link in the chain. And he's not an actor, and he's there for a lot of different reasons, and he could be used really well. But I think that he overstayed his welcome, and was kind of for me, the weak link in all of these relationships, because it was so pushed, because everything had to be a joke, and he always had to be the center of attention, and always, drawing attention to himself. And it just, for me, I didn't buy it for a single minute. Now, maybe that is how he is in his real life, and that's great. But
have you seen his
YouTube
YouTube
channel? Yeah.
No.
He's out of control.
That's awesome.
He's got thousands of cooking videos, and he's
great.
But I don't even think he's the same person on the video that he is as a character. He's a bit larger than life. He's gone through.
He's a big guy.
He's a big guy. He's definitely had some issues in his own personal life that he's gotten.
Yeah, lots of chefs do. 100%. There's a huge addiction because you're up all night and early in the morning, and all kinds of things are going on. But for me, it wore out his welcome, and it was sucking the air out of a lot of scenes that it didn't need to. It's kind of like just like watching a toddler. Like, for a while they're really cute, but then like they want your attention and they're inserting themselves into the scene so much. It's like, okay, we get it. This is my opinion. But there are plenty of real people who can do really amazing turns when they're used well, and they don't need to be actors for sure.
We did an episode of about the movie The Menu. The Menu. Did you see The Menu?
Mm-mm.
It is sort of a riff a bit on the high-end food documentary show, as well as being this high-end, over-the-top kind of chef who makes a plate of nothing is like $1,000. There's nothing there, but it's something special, because I've been working on making a plate of nothing for a long time. There's actually just a dish, and right,
it's like empty canvas in a museum or something.
Totally, exactly. But what they did really well in that movie was to picture the food, and I think back to what Andrew was saying about the photography and cinematography, is the way the food is pictured in this show throughout, from when they're cooking in the beef a year ago, making sandwiches and slop to some extent in the very beginning, to this high-end stuff at the end. It is just dramatic. We see it a lot in documentaries and these million food shows that are out there. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's hard not to want. I want that. I want one of those Marcus donuts. I want one of those 3-layer.
A little cinnamon roll. How about the little cinnamon roll?
Yeah, the bucatini with the I mean, that's fantastic.
Yes. Going back to what you said about the putting the silverware in the right place on the napkin, and that whole discussion about the forks in that restaurant that Richie works at, it is so great. It's about, because it's about service. It's about more than service. It's about making that customer feel special, right? And if that fork has a spot on it, it's not right.
It's about integrity. It's about maybe somebody else wouldn't notice, but we know that that's not as good as it should be and can be.
And we've all been in restaurants where one of the tines on a fork is tweaked out.
Yeah,
we've seen it, right? One of the spoons is sort of bent,
or it's got some egg on it they couldn't get off in the dish.
Or it's got some egg on it, right?
Or there's some lipstick on the glass.
That's right. And you think about it, and you think, did did this place care enough about? Are they caring enough about their patrons? I don't
Oh,
know.
by the way, the book that Richie's reading. So the book is called Unreasonable Hospitality, and it's a real book. And I'm actually kind of curious to get it. And it's what's it called? What's it say? Unreasonable Hospitality. It's by a guy, Will Judara, and he was former co-owner of 11 Madison Park
That's a restaurant.
what's that?
That's a restaurant.
Yeah, in New York. But it sounds like all the extreme things they talked about in the restaurant Richie was working in, where the people came in, they saved all their money, they wouldn't give them the bill, or they do the research. It sounds like in this book they did all that stuff. It sounds pretty wild. So
I think there's some
I
reality.
wouldn't be surprised if those restaurants weren't based on real,
Yes.
on
Yeah.
Olivia Colman. Now that's one cameo that I think was worth it, having Olivia Colman.
that was awesome.
play
I'm
the
just
chef.
sitting there and I'm watching. It's Olivia fucking Colman.
I
Holy
know,
crap. Like she just came out of nowhere.
Right, but it's this
Doing
nice
her
little,
thing.
doing her thing, having a nice little quiet moment, and she's supposed to be somebody of stature, and she is somebody of stature. Or they could have had Helen Mirren, I guess. But of
Right.
course, the back of my mind is like, does she have a work visa to be in the U.S.? Because I've had to hire, British and Australian actors, and it's like a big fucking shit show just to get them here. I'm like, they
Especially
probably.
now.
Well, yeah, and they probably, I would guess, I don't know if this is true, but they probably had an easier time flying out Richie to act with her there,
Interesting.
shooting out that scene rather than bringing her here. Weirdly enough, I mean, I have no idea if that's what they did, but that's like what comes to mind. But yeah, I just loved that. I thought it was fantastic.
And you mentioned the book that Richie's reading.
Yeah.
I sent you a link yesterday
Uh-huh.
from someone on some website who
all the cookbooks that were in
who went through.
Yeah, Ludo Bites. I noticed that. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was awesome. It was so great. But books are really important in this whole 2 seasons. There's books throughout. Coach K's book is like on Sydney's, hip pocket, and has no idea who Coach K is. And
Right.
And taking notes is endless. Taking notes in their own little notebooks. Richie's doing that. Richie's got every book imaginable, and is that and I'm assuming that's a real thing. People are taking notes constantly in little books, and if you're a chef,
You're breaking up.
I'm breaking up. Let me unplug it. I'll replug.
Actually, Lisa, it's funny when your phone just went off.
Uh-huh.
All the little like noises and everything that happened throughout the whole season of the whole season, like in the first episode with the alarm going off, where they're trying to talk to the uncle.
Right.
And then the last episode, and it's just the bells ringing and this going off and this timer going off. Oh my God, it's just maddening.
But what a great device to have in the season finale, to have Carmen literally locked in the walk-in, which is everybody's nightmare. I've never walked into a big walk-in and not been afraid that I would be locked in. I mean, that's like just everybody's nightmare. But to have him after all of this, unable to complete his shift and have to give over the control to everybody else, and everybody else having to step up. I mean, that's just such great storytelling. I mean, that's just such great drama. I just loved it. And also this concept of something I was really thinking, maybe because everybody's about to go on strike and people have been on strike, but this idea that your employer, look, what's Marcus, he basically can only make cakes, right? And instead of firing his ass and hiring a pastry chef who can do higher level things, this employer invests in him.
Right.
And sends him to Copenhagen and trusts that he's going to learn, he's going to bring that knowledge back and use it for the family good, the restaurant family good. Right. When he could take those skills and go work at a much more established, less risky place. And I just love that idea that you're investing in the people who are working for you, that you're trusting that they're going to come back. And they're trusting you that you're not just going to dump them because, like Tina is a little bit older and doesn't have the skills, but they trust that she can get those skills. And I just thought that I mean, I don't even know if that's even an American value anymore, because we're just in such a,
There's no loyalty. No,
I mean,
there's
and
no loyalty.
I'd love to think that the creators of the bear feel that is still, like, I don't know if that is even still true anymore, and I hope it is. But I don't
Well, there's
know.
definitely, I think, of course, one of the major themes is family, right?
Mhm.
All of these people are family. They're family from day one. They were family when Michael ran the restaurant, and they're still family when Carm comes back. And he and Sydney, they decide, they don't even decide, it's just, it is. This is our family. We're not letting go of these people. We're going to keep them part of our, whatever this next step is going to be, which seems ludicrous that you're taking a sandwich shop and creating this hopefully starred restaurant at one point and
Right.
taking these people that make sandwiches and put them into this total world they've never been into. But your family, you're going to go with
Right.
us on this venture if you want to go.
Yeah, and speaking of family, what a great cameo by Robert Townsend. I mean,
I was just
come
gonna
on.
say,
That
I didn't
was
realize it was
just
him.
genius. That was just genius. He's so
Yes.
wonderful.
I didn't realize it was him.
He
Yeah.
just brought it. I think he elevated her performance, quite honestly, and I thought that was awesome.
She is amazing, Sydney. She is just grown on me from day one, and you can see this growth in her too. And she considers herself a partner in this whole thing. And you don't know we have no idea. We just assume this is Michael Carmi's business. Him and his sister. They are the equity people in this business. But you get the sense that Sydney feels like she's a partner, and that word partner comes up a lot, right? When she's talking to other people. What's your connection? You never hear it. You don't know what it is, but at least from her point of view, she feels like she's a partner.
And she's got, not that she's jealous of Claire, the new girlfriend, but that there is an intimacy when you're a work wife or a work husband or a work partnership. Yeah. There's an intimacy there. You're going through battles together that your romantic partner isn't necessarily going to be part of. So that was really interesting. And I'm really glad that the writers didn't try to make there be a love connection there between them. Or between her and Marcus necessarily. You could see that in the hands of another showrunner, you might want to ship those people together. But that had a really great balance. And I think that it's a much fresher way to go, that people are not just hooking up, just for the sake of will they, won't they kind of a thing.
The Carmi-Sydney relationship is fascinating because he to her is like this Hall of Fame chef. She wants to be him. She wants all the stuff that he's had. She wants, and she's failed in her little process getting to where she's kind of forced herself into this place and given herself a job in essence in the beginning last season. And now she's right in the thick of things. And she is to the point where their relationship is, she can tell him and say things to him pretty much whatever she wants to say. Mm-hmm. And he feels confident in her to let her make decisions on certain things. It's an interesting dynamic. And that scene underneath the table, when they're fixing the table, is this non-sexual, non-platonic relationship, work relationship, friends relationship, people that respect each other relationship. And you see it all there at once. We trust each other to do this thing, whether it's going to succeed or not, and we're going to go for it together. We're going to let it rip together. And It's really pretty. It's really beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely one of the strengths of the show.
I was going to ask you guys about one person. Well,
uh-oh.
I'm looking for my notes. Sorry.
I thought you were frozen for a moment.
I really was frozen.
He pulled a Sydney from the Denmark episode.
That's right. Feeding the cat that's not there.
Uh-huh.
What's funny is the names of the episodes are really funny. I don't remember what episode season 1 was about, but the episodes are named foods.
Yep.
So it's
I got
the
the list
episodes
right
are
here.
beef, pasta, Sunday, honeydew. It sounds like it's like codes. It doesn't seem like they're
Yeah.
real. It's just codes.
So
The
season 1 was System, Hands, Brigade, Dogs, Sheridan, Ceres series. I don't know. Review and then Brajol. So
oh, that's funny.
the Brajol.
And this is all about food. It's just all
Yeah.
about food. Oh, except for the word forks.
Yes.
Right.
Well,
And
you
the
can't
fork
eat it.
thing is fascinating. It's because it starts in this very first episode, and it's an ongoing
It's a
theme.
theme for sure. I
They're
love
very
that.
good in the writing about keeping a theme and going forward with it.
Yeah.
And you can come back to all these things after seeing it more than once. You see those things again and again and again.
That's so great.
The fork thing is just, I mean, it's funny, and that the fishes episode with Barenthal going nuts and throwing forks, and then the fork ends up in the at the end, the last shot in the what's the dessert called? The
Cannoli.
Cannoli. Thank you. And then what does he make at his dessert at the end? Is a cannoli, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
forks are an issue. It's all about forks. It really, life is all about forks, isn't it?
This fork and show, I'll tell you.
This fork and show.
Great. It's a great through line, and it's like these little Easter eggs that the audience gets to go, oh, I get that, I saw that, I'm with you, I'm hearing you, but anyway, I think every few years I toy with the idea of opening a restaurant, and it's such a romantic idea because you want to make this place that is your expression of yourself, and you want it to be the third place where people, not home, not work, but your place. And you're going to
what would you do? What kind of restaurant?
I mean, I've always thought about, some version of an Italian restaurant, something like that. And I have it all in my mind, the design, but then, it's such a romanticized thing because once you get into the actual running and the overhead and the worry and the prices and the staffing, pretty soon you just, your dream is very quickly crushed. But it's but that it's a very romantic idea, and I think that's why I love watching people actually try to do it.
I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I've
It's
always wanted
interesting.
like a bar and grill would be just
Yeah. Who doesn't want to be Sam Malone behind the bar?
Something like that.
My wife and I were in Chicago last year, and we stopped in a little place for coffee, and it was a little French looking little pastry shop coffee place. One person there, one woman, the owner, and she just kind of it seemed like she ran the place by herself. And we walked away thinking, boy, what a really neat little place. But even the smallest of restaurants have all the same problems, right? They have to buy inventory. They have to worry about costs. They have to worry about they had one employee who doesn't show up every day. It's
or who's stealing from you. The employee's stealing stuff. Yeah.
Yes, or the vendor who's not bringing you spoilage, not getting the coffee that you ordered on time, and all of a sudden you can't, or not getting napkins or what, and you have to run over to CVS to get napkins for the day. It's the same thing even at the smallest of levels, and then when you get to the bear type level, or somewhere even in between, like Lisa's dream, or maybe larger, it's magnified. It's even worse, and I can't imagine the stress. I can't imagine, because the reality is it's not easy. It's a lot of work.
Well, even like thinking about, how are you going to run out of stuff in the middle of a shift? What if the Bronzino doesn't sell tonight? Everybody wants the lamb chop.
That's the thing. Like, what's selling tonight? What's hot? What can your servers unload and all of that stuff? And then figuring out and how much to charge something. What is the price point that is going to make your locals go, what the fuck? This used to be our local place. Now you want $18 for a plate of spaghetti. All that happens in my neighborhood all the time.
Or you get the veal chop, but you don't get anything next. Oh, all the sides. You want broccoli with that? Well, that's another $15.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
And
really?
then
You
getting
just
a
charged me
liquor,
$40 for veal chop.
and then getting a liquor license and dealing with liquor licenses and bartenders and the cost of alcohol and unruly patrons, and it's never ending.
Yeah.
Here in LA we got this, and there's a story going on about this one restaurant, John and Vinny's, who's been charging a 18%. I think it was 18%
Service.
surcharge on their bills for, what was the term they used? For like staff betterment or something, and it was never clear whether it was a tip or not. And so now they're being sued by ex-employees, I think, right? And they're actually going out of business. They're closing the store, but it's this whole thing about, they probably thought they were doing something really good initially.
Right.
We're trying to help out our staff and make the, not tipping, but providing a fair amount of extra money to everybody, not just the server.
Well, it was definitely shady. And they bring this up in The Bear, like the discussion about tipping and what's it going to be,
Non-tipping. Yes.
and there are restaurants that say, yes, you do not tip in this restaurant. We pay our staff a living wage, and this is the percentage that's added onto your bill. Or our prices are just high enough, and that is what is already absorbed, but what they were doing was just completely shady. And people thought that the wait staff was getting that's like a party of over, like in any restaurant, if you're a party of over 8, there's an automatic service charge, or gratuity, automatic gratuity. Yeah.
Yes.
18%.
And the verbiage is not clear in most restaurants. I'm not pointing out just John and Vinny's, but there's lots of restaurants that say service charge. Well, what's it actually going to? Who's it going to? Is it going to the owner's pocket, or is it going to the staff?
Right.
And it's never clear, and it's not fair and for the consumer. But that whole concept of dealing with, are we going to tip? Are we going to tips? Not tips.
Yeah.
Not service charge. It was stressing me out. It's stressing me out thinking about it now, and I'm not even going to
I know.
Yeah, and unemployment and disability and guys getting burned and guys getting cut, and then the toilet backs up, and it's like any other business. It's fraught with hell, and and you just want to make good food and feed people. That's really what you want to do.
And give them memories, give them that special night, give them that special place where you took your wife for the first date, or your grandfather's, that's really what it's about, but anyway.
So is that restaurant that they go to, that Richie goes to in Chicago, I think it's based on a real restaurant.
Yes. I think it's called Alinea. There's a restaurant there, and when my son was reading, my son goes to school in Chicago, so I'm going to be spending a lot of time in Chicago over the next 3 years. And he's looking at the menu, and I think they have different levels, and I think it starts at like $250 a head.
Yeah,
and it can go up to like $500 a person, etc. But it's it's to the nth degree.
Yeah,
and it's an experience, not just eating, right?
Right.
Well, it better be. It better be. That's like if I ever went to the French Laundry. I mean, they better give me a manicure before I leave.
Well, it was funny because me and my son were going off about this whole thing. It's like, it's expensive, right? But at least you get a meal. You want to go to a concert, and you can't get like the first, the pre things. You want to go see Taylor Swift. You're sitting in the boondocks at the whatever center in your town. Let's say the Staples Center. You're all the way in the rafters, and you paid $500 a ticket for what? To watch Taylor Swift on the Jumbotron?
Speaking of Taylor Swift, how great is that scene when Richie starts singing a Taylor Swift song? The music in this is off the charts. And that's the other thing that I started thinking about with the music clearances, where it must have cost almost as much as hiring Olivia Colman. But, all the REM songs and the Lindsey Buckingham songs. I mean, that's just so wonderful to have.
And it wasn't just a clip. They would play like the whole song.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there a difference price-wise? Like if you play the whole song versus a clip? Or you just have to get the rights to get the rights?
I don't know. I have no idea what that would be. Just getting them to agree at all to have their song in your, that's not easy.
Right.
No.
Well, although, what was the one song, that Kate Bush song that was on Stranger Things, Running Up That Hill?
Yeah.
Where's REM these days? Maybe they're thinking the same thing. Like, next thing you know, they're
Payday.
like number one
I
on
think that I
Spotify.
think they're fine. I think Michael
No, they
Stipe
probably
is
are.
just
Well,
fine.
Mick Jagger's probably fine, but he's still slinging. He's still doing his thing. So you can never have too
The,
much.
the right thing is interesting. I remember Freaks and Geeks had a lot of great music. It was amazing. Great
Mhm.
sound, 70s, 80s soundtrack of songs. It couldn't get released on DVD and syndicated because they couldn't get the for all those songs.
Really? I didn't know.
Whoever, yeah. And that's actually a new that's actually a there's some things that have not been released ever that are not out for streaming
Wow.
because of the music. And one of those is Moonlighting. Now, Moonlighting was one of my favorite shows from the
Oh, I
80s.
love the moonlighting. Really?
It has never been released. And so I cannot remember the producer, Glenn, Karen. He's got like 3 names. I can't remember his name. He's
Mhm.
been trying to get this released out, but it's all about music rights. And
Wow, that's incredible.
they cannot get it all. Supposedly by the end of this year, maybe there's a chance it's going to show up on, Hulu or Netflix, but it's never been out. It's weird. And music is such an integral part of making these shows. I think it's easier on the front end to get somebody to say, "Yeah, sure," but it's on the long end for the DVDs and for the streaming is when then REM doesn't. Yeah, we don't want our music released that way. One time on a
Interesting.
TV show. Yeah, isn't it weird?
Yeah,
It's all
I
about the
didn't know.
IP. It's all
Yeah,
about the
Yeah.
IP.
exactly.
How we doing with our drinks, kids?
Mm.
We good?
We're good. I'm gonna have to wrap this up. I've got 2 dogs that I need to go take for a walk,
No
but
worries.
it was nice to
Lisa,
hang out
thank
with
you
you guys
again.
again.
This was awesome. We will have you back and we'll talk Emmys the next time you come on.
Okay, sounds good. All right,
Thank you, Lisa.
guys, take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Stay cool.
Bye, Lisa. So that was Lisa Zambetti from the Killer Casting podcast. Come on. I think it's an annual thing with her. She'll come on and we can talk some big show and then we'll talk the Emmys, but we'll have her back to talk about this year's Emmys.
Absolutely.
It was great hearing her background like last year,
Right.
her background in restaurants, as well as her background in current background in casting, and how all the little nuances are to this stuff.
It's fun. It's good fun. So anyway, so you really like season 2. Do you like season 2 better than season 1?
I did not rewatch season 1, and I've
Well,
rewatched season 2. And
you've never rewatched season 1?
Now I can't remember if I did or didn't. I don't remember if I did, but season 2 feels more memorable to me.
Well, it's recency bias, right?
Well, maybe, but I did rewatch the one take episode in season 1. I did do that. I don't remember if I watched the whole thing. I think, even with Lisa's criticisms aside, I think it's a pretty great series. Again, I go back to I love a show that creates tension and also is funny, and there's trying to find this balance without going too crazy one way or the other. Even in the fishes episode, we didn't talk too much about this. There's a lot of funny stuff going on in that episode
yeah.
too,
Yeah.
right?
Even all the stuff with the cards and just
the
not just
baseball
that.
cards and the what's going on in the kitchen with Jamie Lee Curtis and the boy the I'm not sure how to explain this. The way the family talks to each other, their interpersonal relationships in the way they speak is funny. They're just funny the way they say things to each other.
They know each other too. There's that
They
familiarity.
know each other, and it's funny. It's a funny way they speak to each other.
But on the flip side, also with the tension with Uncle Lee and with the mom, they all know what do you want to call it? Trigger point is.
Yes, they know the trigger points. Yes,
they know what's going to set somebody off.
Yes,
like don't ask mom, is she okay? She's going to
that.
lose it.
Yes.
Don't interrupt Richie when he's is it Richie? No, not Richie. Don't interrupt Michael when he's telling the same story again, over and over again.
don't go in the kitchen, right? When they tell Stevie, don't go in the kitchen.
Don't do it.
And he goes in the kitchen.
And most importantly, don't bring an eighth fish.
And don't bring it.
And it better
Don't
not
bring
be a tuna casserole.
tuna casserole. Do not bring a tuna casserole in. It's just, that's funny.
By
right?
the way,
And
his
it breaks-
character, I really like Natalie's husband because he
I do
just
too.
can't fit in. He is literally the square peg in the round hole.
Right.
He's trying so hard, to just, and I think he genuinely likes everybody.
I just remembered where I know him from. Where one thing I know him, he's in commercials. He's in those. It's some
Oh, the insurance commercials.
the insurance commercial.
Yeah,
That's
he's
one.
like the one about don't be your parents.
Yes, he's in
Yeah.
that. I think he was in this Netflix show, and I think it's a Duplass brothers
Duplass, yeah.
show, but they're not in it. And it was called Love.
Yeah, and
might
it's
not
with
be
what's her name too, right?
Jacobs.
Yes, Jillian Jacobs.
Her. What's her name?
Jillian, is that it?
Jillian Jacobs, right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes.
Doesn't sound right. Yeah, and he is one of the characters who lives in this building. He's one of the friends of all of the two
Right.
main characters, right? And he's really good about playing this vanilla guy and being the. He's smart. He always has a job, and he's funny in the first season. Oh yeah, I did rewatch the first season, and he's at the birthday party. Yeah, he's very good, and he's one of those side characters as you need to break tension. I think. Yeah, he's really good.
And his heart's in the right place, and he's trying to do the right thing by the family and bring people together.
Yep.
But maybe he's not totally in tune with the Berzato clan.
Yep. Yep.
So
I don't totally agree with Lisa on Neil Fack, on Maddie Matheson.
I thought he was fun. I get where she's coming from. I understand it.
I get it too. No, I was going to say, I think he's a little under the radar, even though he's a big personality and a big person. I think it's a little bit under the radar, but someone who's not under the radar, but doesn't get a lot of screen time, but when he's on the screen, it's powerful, is Oliver Platt.
Oh, he's tremendous.
He is.
I think he's great on the show. I absolutely love every
Awesome.
scene he's in.
Me too. He's got the whole Chicago thing. Chicago, you don't know if he's a totally legitimate business guy.
Oh, he's absolutely not legitimate.
But you don't know that for certain.
You got a pretty good idea, though.
But he's got a lot of money.
Okay, wait.
He's given him $500,000, right?
But episode 1, what's he say? Oh, by the way, we found your money. And he said he didn't put it in the bank, did he?
Oh, right.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Drop the envelope in the box. Go to this bill mail slot, and you'll get your license. You'll get your business permit.
But you don't really know what his story is.
No.
But he's this loving uncle. He really cares for these 3 kids, and to an extent, the wider family, the non-family members, the cousins,
Right.
He cares, and even though he probably is throwing money away, he still does it. He cares about Natalie's baby. He cares about Richie's baby, and when and basically lies and says he's got a job. And during the Christmas episode, he's given him a job because he wants Jillian Jacobs to feel good about her husband. One telling line, it's very obvious, is when he's talking to Carmi, and Carmi tells him he has a girlfriend, and he's very happy for him.
Right.
But he says, "Uh-oh," because he actually told this whole story to him about the Cubs and Bartman and taking your eye off the ball, and that's the thing that's going to take. That is the kind of thing that can take your eye off the ball.
Yep.
Is having an outside relationship, right? And he knows. He's been there. He's been around the block, and I just love his scenes. He just is so powerful and so great in those, and funny. He's another funny guy.
Yep.
His lines are so funny.
He's great. And I told you before, I wasn't a huge fan of Oliver Platt in the past.
Me neither.
I haven't seen him in much. but he really works in this show.
Yes.
He really, really works in this show. And honestly, I think okay. So if you had to rank the 10 episodes, right, and you remember what they were: beef, pasta, Sunday, honeydew,
Yep.
which is Marcus going to Copenhagen, pop, fishes, forks, bolognese, omelet, and the bear. But do you have a favorite episode?
It really has to be. I really loved the fishes. It's
Uh-huh.
for all the things I said before. It's just an amalgamation of what this family's chaos is about and dysfunction is about, and done in a way that I think maybe it's a bit over the top. I'll agree with Lisa
Oh,
there,
it's a lot over the top.
but in the way that we go into these once in a great while family events, and you haven't seen everybody, and it's all out of context, and all these bad vibes come up, and somebody's drinking too much, and you get to really see who the family is and what the family dynamic is. You really can understand where Carmi's from all this and what he grew up with, and not 100%, but a lot, and what the three kids grew up with, and I just think it was spectacular, and the individual cameos are just. I mean, I said it to my daughter when we were watching it the first time that a year from now, Jamie Lee Curtis will be nominated for an Emmy.
No, absolutely.
Not even if there shouldn't be an award show if she's not nominated. It shouldn't even be a thing. That's how great she was, I think, in it. And Barenthal too. So involved in his character. It just everything about that whole episode just is. We'll talk about it. I think it'll be talked about for many, many years. That's how good of an episode it was.
It was over the top, but in a strange way, I can kind of relate to it. You know, you've been there. You've been there when the tension's all ratcheted up, and you're just waiting for something to happen.
You're waiting for the fire to the conflagration to start.
Yeah, you're waiting for the fire suppression system to fail and the house to blow up.
Totally. Yes.
You know, I not to talk about family because this is going to be on the pod, but there's just sometimes you walk into like with your parents, you walk in there and there's something hanging out there and they're just waiting for the right moment.
Been there many times.
Yeah, so you just know, you see the look on their face, you kind of sense the tone. Maybe they're a little quieter than little more quiet than usual because they're holding back and they're just waiting. You just know what's going to happen. You're waiting for that balloon to pop.
All the cliches about those family events are true for a reason.
Now this was turned up to 11.
It was.
But it happens.
Yeah. So, I loved all the episodes, and I think those first two were a little bit. Maybe I could understand where Lisa was coming from on those. The last three episodes are just like off the chart. They're just great, and it's hard to rank them, of course, but the last episode's great. The Fishes is great, and I really, really enjoyed Marcus's and Richie's individual episodes.
Yeah, so did I. And the thing with Marcus's, I think it was almost like there was like it almost was really serene and like controlled, where everything was more like precise. It wasn't like mayhem. You know what I mean? He was like studying with the master, learning, trying different things. It's okay if you screw it up, do it again.
Very Nordic, very Scandinavian. There's a peacefulness in what that culture's about, and it's a quiet way of working and doing things.
It was a nice juxtaposition compared to what was going on with the mayhem in Chicago.
Yeah,
because he called in a couple times, right? But the fire suppression system wasn't working.
Yeah, yep.
And it's like, holy crap! I think I like it here. I think I like Copenhagen. Yeah. I think I like feeding the invisible dog or the invisible cat, whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah. That was a really interesting episode, and when he has that life-saving moment where he saves the older man on the bike.
Yeah, that was odd. It kind of
was odd, but it turned you off.
No, it turned me off. It just kind of had me like,
why?
Well, what was going to happen? Like you almost felt like something bad was going to happen.
I think it tried to portray Marcus, which we already knew. He's this caring person.
Yes.
He's this caring person who goes out of his way to do the right thing and taking care of his mother.
Right. Which is how the show opened for season 2.
That's
Him
right.
taking care of his
And
mom. So
that's right. And that's an ongoing story. And being concerned about her, calling her and leaving a voicemail for her just so she could hear the voice of him. And then helping this man. Of course, a lot of people would do that. But the way he did it, he was very concerned. And then being struck by the way the man embraced him and held him. I think Marcus didn't always get that in his life. He didn't get that reciprocity of love. And it made him feel more part of the community, more part of the landscape. And when he's describing the 4 desserts that he made, he's not describing the food. He's not describing, oh, this has vanilla and marzipan and ice cream and blah blah blah. He's talking about what these things represent, what these four desserts are in a larger sense. That's powerful. I think it was really great.
It was great. It was just really, really beautiful. I mean, the show just kind of like gets you right here, man. Gets you right here.
Even that kind of thing are those little details, like the books, like Carmy giving Sydney that the uniform with from that famous uniform place with her initials on it, and giving his knife to Tina and not wanting it back.
Yeah,
and I think Carmi's interesting because I would guess that lots of chefs that go through this process at that level of cooking, of restaurant life, can come out being a total dick. Right?
Absolutely.
Joel McHale looks like he's probably a dick outside of that character is a dick outside of the restaurant.
Oh, the kitchen,
right? At the kitchen. Carmi's not. He's as damaged as he is. He's doing these nice things for people.
Right.
Really, granted, he has to do some things because of money, but he's doing things. He's gone to Copenhagen and he comes back and he makes Sprite for his sister-in-law,
right,
cousin-in-law. He's a good-hearted person with all the flaws that he has and crap that he's been through, all the wars that he's been through with his family. So I don't know. It's all funny. It's all fun. And the arcs of all these individuals are really interesting. Even the lesser characters are really interesting. I wonder where they're going to go next year. I wonder where. I'm sure they've already got some ideas, and some of the writing's been down to the arcs have been kind of thought about.
What's interesting is I was looking at, I was doing my little IMDb thing. So season 1 premiered on Hulu 6/23/2022. Season 2 6/22/2023.
Yeah.
So they were within a year of each other. Exactly.
And depending on what happens tonight,
well, that's true. The strike could mess everything up, right?
Potentially, hopefully things go well and things get sewed up. But I think it's going to be there's going to be some time before this all gets resolved. Maybe late summer next year, we'll see it again. I hope.
Yeah, same.
There's been, you and I have talked about this off air enough. I was pretty obsessed by this show.
Oh, same.
I was dreaming about it. I was thinking about it a lot, and I don't know how. I've read a lot about it. I've listened to podcasts about it. I went into somewhat of a mini dive into Matty Matheson. I didn't know who the hell he was. Somebody told me about him after we were talking about the show. I had no idea what this guy's background was. I had no idea he had a cooking shows. I had no idea he had this YouTube thing. And I started, and I want to make Italian beef like he made it on his YouTube channel.
Yeah.
um, there's so much to this show that it really sucked me in. I almost need I need to step away from it because I'm glad we're doing this now because I want to walk away from it for a while,
Right, right,
and
right.
because it's been so much a part of me for like 2 months now.
Yeah, I get it. It's all consuming. It is
It
good.
is.
I watched it with my son. Then I watched it again this past weekend. I just wanted to watch it again just to refresh my memory. So, and you
My
pick up on the little details, which is what's great about the show.
Yeah,
And I think that's a sign of a good show. You can go back to it, and there's always something there.
yeah. There's a
But
lot going on.
right, like Succession, which is what makes Succession great. You go back and you pick up the little subtle things you might have missed before because they're throwing so much at you. You can only absorb so much in one sitting.
Did you listen to the watch this week?
No, I'm behind on
So
everything.
Nick what's it? Christopher Store's on the
Oh, is
interview.
he?
Yep, it's great.
Okay.
And he seems like a regular guy. And he talks about the little nuances to the show and little things, little homages. Some of it's about music, some of it's about little things in his love of things that are in the show. And um, I don't think any of it is for they're they're not putting Easter eggs out there just to put
Sure.
Easter eggs out there.
Right.
They're not out there putting Easter eggs because there's people that want to see Easter eggs and figure them out. They really have a connection to maybe every book, or they feel that Carmi has a connection to every book on that shelf.
Mhm.
They really believe in that character, and they want his character represented in everything from his knife, which is probably some special knife, right? Which some nerdy chef knows what that knife was,
Right, right, right.
some brand, to all of those books, to Coach K, and to that book that Sydney's reading, right? I just think it's really special the way that they've gone down the rabbit hole and are nerdy yet really entertaining.
Mhm. I really do want to read that book that I mentioned, The Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yeah.
It's looks really interesting, and the guy is not viewing it just as a restaurant thing. He's just kind of applying it to other like businesses. Basically, surprise people. Surprise them in good ways, not in bad
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Make them expect more, as opposed to what you usually get, where if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. At a lot of places, everyone's doing the bare minimum anymore.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I really do want to read the book.
So I just picked up a Anthony Bourdain cookbook called Appetites. I think it's called Appetites.
Was he the author
And
of the book, or is it
he's
just
out for
based
a book. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a book of very simple recipes that he grew up on, and he still cooks, and he still made.
Right.
And this is like about 6 years ago. I think there's a copyright on it. I just started it, and when I was reading just even the intro, and it's very Bourdainish and it's very funny, and because at this time he has an 8-year-old daughter.
Right.
I think it's 2017, and so he's not making her, I don't know,
Foie gras.
fargois. He's making her pancakes,
Right.
scrambled eggs, and
Chicken fingers.
chicken fingers. And so he's going back to his own childhood, right? Like all parents do, right? It's a very simple way of cooking, and it's very funny. He's cooking for an 8-year-old is very different cooking for a 48-year-old guy from Wall Street, right?
Right.
Who's bringing like 6 high rollers into a restaurant.
Right.
And I wondered, because I just got this book about a week and a half ago, what would Bourdain think about the bear?
Mm-hmm.
What would he think about the dynamics? Because his childhood wasn't perfect like everyone else's, and and his life was not perfect in any sort of sort of thought. He wrote dramatically about how shitty and how horrible the restaurant business is, and working in kitchens, and all the things that Lisa itemized for us, things that he saw for 40 years, right? I wonder how he would react to this kind of show, and if he would think it's legitimate and real, and how does he see himself in those characters, and maybe in some ways too. He would have been I think he would have been a great story consultant for a show like this.
True. So you're saying you like this show? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying I love this show. Yeah.
Oh, I'm with you. I'm with you right there.
I every once in a while you get that show somewhere in the middle of the year. Oh, that's the best show of the year. At the moment, this is the best show of the year for me by far. I can't even think of anything that's better for me. It's that good. Reservation Dogs is coming out, the new season.
In a couple months.
Next month. Weeks, right? I think it's the beginning of August. Yeah.
Well, they were neck and neck last year. They were 1 and 2. I think.
And last year, I remember when we had a similar end of the year discussion, and I think I had Reservation Dogs up in the top 1 or 2.
I think I have Reservation Dogs was 1 for me.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really, really good. This is really good, and I think, and like I said, I think that there's elements of this show, especially the fishes episode, that will be talked about for many, many years. Like, the last episode of MASH, or the first episode of Mary Tyler Moore, or the first episode of Cheers. It's that kind of show, that episode, and then the whole show is just really great. And I think it'll be reflected in year-end ratings and things. Not that that matters, but anyway, that's my 2 cents on this show.
I got you. I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. So, what do you think? You think we've kicked the bear?
I think we've kicked the bear. I think
we poked the bear. Did we poke the bear?
Now, the way you presented this, I think in one of our emails was,
why should Mike watch the bear?
Why should Mike watch the bear?
Because it's an awesome show.
It really is.
It's a great show, and he likes food, and all the elements of this show. It's got a little bit of everything. There's the family dynamics, there's the restaurant dynamics, there's the, just the interpersonal relationships with work. It's got everything. It's got the arcs of people kind of, like with Richie. Richie was down in the dumps. He was literally in the basement, and by the end of the season, he's the man.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, what's his name? Carmi's locked in the freezer, and he's got to step up. And what's he do? He steps up.
And in the very beginning of last year, when Carmi comes in, and it's his restaurant, even though Richie's worked there, he's got no skin in the game. He's just worked there, as far as we know. Michael left it to Richie, to Carmi, and Carmi wants to make some changes, and Richie goes ballistic. Right? No, that's not how we do things here. This is the way it's been. We're not changing. You haven't been here. Well, that arc for him, that growth from that belligerent guy to, okay, I'm part of the team now, and I found my purpose. I found my place. This is what I can do to help this place be the place to get a star, right? It's very different from where he was 18, 19 episodes ago.
Even the little thing he pulled with the interviewee with the napkin and the fork.
Oh, it's so good.
That was just so funny. Whether it's a real thing or not, I don't know, but it was great. I'm
sure in interview. Well, I mean, that's in a larger sense. People do that kind of crap in interviews all the time. Interviewing techniques, is the pencil's not pointing the right direction, or the pen doesn't have a cap on it, and what does that person do? How do they react to it? She did. That one applicant didn't do the things she should have done. And it's kind of the little things that he learned at that restaurant that he worked at for a week that stuck with him. And that's the little thing that you want your servers or your employees to be aware of and to know, so that they're taking care of people.
Yep.
He learned. Different guy.
Yes.
All right. We did it. We did the bear. And Mike needs to watch the bear.
He does need to watch the bear. He needs to watch a lot of things. He needs to watch less Marvel and more of these other things that are just so much better.
Yes. More bear and less Nessman. Oh wait, that's different. That's different.
That's a different show.
WKR.
Is that
Right.
WKRP?
And I'm just seeing Joanne McGinnis's comment, and she's right. That whole thing about Richie, just I love the transformation of Richie in this episode, in this season. That's what intrigued me. The restaurant was crap and turned into something amazing, as was Richie. That's right, and that's like the whole show, right? Everyone grew. Everyone grew, and even Carmi at his depth at the end understands how screwed up he is. I think.
Yep.
I hope.
Yep.
So I loved it. I loved it. And we did it live on Booze Dancing TV live stream with Lisa Zambetti. Really fun night. Great to see her again. And this will be coming to a podcast venue at some point for your listening pleasure on your own at some point.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
you
sir.
can take us out of here whenever you want, my friend.
All right. Well, sir, cheers. And thank you for doing this. And again, thank you to Lisa. And yes, the podcast will be out in hopefully a week or two.
And thank you to the Bear and FX and the Nick and Christopher Store and company. Just love your show. And if you want to come on, we'll have you on, Chris. Come on.
And, you know, and we didn't get paid to say that, but you know what? Nope. If they offer us money, we'll take it.
Yes. Hey, Maddie, if you're out there, Maddie, we want you to come on.
Oh,
I love that talk to Maddie
please.
for a while.
I want a live instruction on how to make the beef.
I am going to make that recipe.
All right. I'm going to roll the end credits.
All right. Do it.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Later.
Later.